First, I have to say, this is Ariel Arbel, and I have radios implanted in my body from terrorists as well as some government workers and some corporation workers. And some of those terrorists threatened me with severe torture and lobotomy. They said it to me 10 times. And this is my message to extraterrestrials regarding it. Before I turn the pages, if the aliens want to relay a message about a mathematical object to work with me on by a computer chip implant in my body, that would be a 3-syllable object that would have profound significance for parallel universe communication and stuff, some of the weirdest stuff in the world that is totally new to humans, go for it with sending a message back in time to put a computer chip implant in my body. Here's just some provisional text regarding it, alright? And the information possibly from alien computer chips, which result was spiral cone. And this is the colorful artistic rendition of it, of the first page of the math paper for it. Alright? I came up with something very interesting for it. But on to the exact mathematics for it. Alright? Alright. These are two cones, the same radius and different heights. The right cone has a greater height than the left cone. Alright, they're initially stationary and they're displaced a distance apart. This is a small microscopic cylinder with a laser pointing out the side of it, and both the cones are on the same line, and the laser is rotating at constant angular velocity theta and is moving to the right at constant velocity v and traces out through both those cones, right? And the cones are initially stationary. Then the two cones are jump started in both to go to a particular from 0 to a finite angular velocity and to a finite linear translational velocity, jump started both to velocity theta and velocity v, such that both of them would this would basically formulate an emitting point emitting a point moving radially outwards, but moving at the same time right here. So basically, like this point would be moving to the side, emitting points moving radially outwards, and this point at the center of the base would be moving to the left, receiving points moving radially. Right? That particular object is spiral cone. Actually, just the thing with the spirals is a spiral cone. But anyways, you notice that from this particular initial thing like that, the two spirals will rest on a spiral, on a corkscrew ramp, a corkscrew plane. The two spirals would rest at a corkscrew plane, such that this would be emitting point, and this point would be receiving point, and they're moving like that, right? All right. So there's actually plenty of mathematics involved in that so far, actually in exact details with that. But anyways, I'm going to move onwards. All right. Suppose that the two were displaced by a particular distance, v delta t, and I have to add that the points being emitted by this point in that mathematical model are moving at velocity v1. The points being received by this moving point are moving at velocity v2. Right, the radially moving points are moving at velocity v1 and v2 right there, right? All right. So if the tip of this cone is displaced from the base by a distance v delta t, which is the velocity of the two cones in linear motion, all right, then if we consider a particular amount of time delta t such that 2v2 delta t is less than r, that means that if it's displaced by this particular distance, by the time this point gets to here, the point being emitted from the perimeter will be en route. And consider after time delta t, it'll be right here, and the point will be en route. Then after time 2 delta t, it'll be en route here. And then for the additional amount of time before an intersection, because when it's at this point, it will emit a point, for the additional amount of time, it'll be r minus 2 delta t v2, which would be the distance that is displaced right here, right, over v1 plus v2. So we have established that from a starting time of 0, at the time 2 delta t plus r minus 2 delta t v2 over v1 plus v2, there'll be an intersection of the two spirals. That implies that we can see that because delta t can be adjusted, this would form a continuum curve if graphed, right? Which means that it would intersect for a continuous interval. But of course it doesn't, and you have to convince yourself of this, all right? All right, you can use computer graphics, video graphic type in your mind's eye visual display, all right? Or you can consider a platform of lasers aimed in this direction. That would be a platform with grid of lasers, and we see that they intersect with the parallel projection. These two spirals are moving in opposite directions and then have to intersect in a series of pulses. Paradox! and how this can be used perhaps for parallel universe communicators or perhaps time machines, possibly by claymation. That would be the calibrated instrument to measure the phenomena. Not really phenomena. It's like it has to have a solution of some sort. But I thought of some really interesting things of a type of kind of like martini cocktail party moving van type thing that would actually utilize the spiral cone claymations and typewriters and the type of office divisor type thing for like thing where you purchase 2 hours of gameplay at a time and rotate between the four people. Where like kind of like you'd have to play a type of board game of like type of like statements and axioms where you have to like type your like you can use the initial cards and then you exchange kind of like green thing like that would be on a tray type thing, sliding the cards to ante up, and it's kind of like it would be a type of gambling game type thing where like you type in the word series that you want to connect your dialogue to. Like basically, I came up with the full thing for it. Basically, like you'd say out loud information in your course of your dialogue, and then you'd continue with the word series on the card. All right, you consider with the word series on the card on top of game board type thing. Then you connect that word series and another word series to the underlying card and a type of game board triangulation thing. And then there'd be like 4 different players like that. And I came up and the goal is to determine information on how to build a time machine from it and find theorems from it and associated paradoxes and resolve it and actually collect massive amounts of data about it. Right, so that is spiral cone.